Kathy Gwilliam loves hiking, reading, catching the sunrise, and enjoying chocolate chip cookies, though she'd rather not bake them. As an author, speaker, podcaster, and mother of 5, she has discovered that success in any venture comes not just from what we know, but from recognizing what we don't know yet and seeking out those who can guide us along the way. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Kathy Gwilliam.
Have you ever had an entrepreneurial idea that gets you so excited you just want to jump in and get the ball rolling as quickly as you can? You know, that kind of idea is powerful, but it can put you in dangerous waters if you don't take the time to learn what you need. I learned this lesson on a family vacation. We were at beautiful Lake Tahoe with some friends during an unseasonable cold front, complete with snow. But we were determined to have fun anyway. So we bundled up in our winter gear and took a hike down to the lake. Moments after we arrived, I saw a ski boat approaching. Who in their right mind wants to go boating in weather like this? I told my friends. I didn't even want to be standing out there. It was so bitter cold. At this location, boats had to tie off about a quarter mile offshore, and then passengers would ride smaller man-powered vessels to the beach. My friend Ryan had worked as a lifeguard on a beach in Japan during high school. And as we watched 2 men untie the boat and lift a kayak into the water and clumsily climb on board, he sighed and began to mumble, "I'm gonna be really mad if I have to go save them." I laughed too, thinking he was being a tad bit dramatic, until not 10 feet from their boat, a white cap flipped their kayak, plunging these 2 men into that frigid water. Instantly, we went from curious amusement to a state of alarm. There were 2 women standing a little ways down the beach, and we ran over to see if they knew the men in the water. Laughing, they said, "Yeah, we can't believe they flipped their paddle board. Do you happen to know the number to the Coast Guard?" I was dumbfounded. One, that 2 grown men had thought it was a good idea to ride a single paddleboard to shore in this weather. And 2, that these women had no idea the danger that their friends were in. The water temperature that day was 48 degrees. That is cold enough to initiate swim failure within 3 minutes. Your muscles lose their function, making it almost impossible to swim or even just stay afloat. Hypothermia could have set in within 30 minutes. As we continued to talk, these women told us that the men had just barely bought this boat and condo. This was their maiden voyage, and no one in their party had any experience with a boat or on a lake. In fact, those men were wearing winter coats and snow boots with no life jackets. Now, my husband, Jim, and Ryan were already scouring the beach, searching the kayaks that lined the shore, but they were all locked up. Until they came to one rowboat, whose padlock just so happened to not be completely latched. That was also the only boat on that shore that would have accommodated 4 adult grown men. I had so much anxiety as I watched them row out to where these men were barely hanging onto that paddleboard, one of them almost non-responsive by this point. I held my breath as I watched that boat rock back and forth in the choppy waves as they struggled to pull these big men with their sopping wet clothes into the boat and not capsize. But they succeeded and safely got everyone back to shore. These 2 men were intelligent, successful businessmen who had worked really hard to be able to purchase this boat and condo, envisioning a fun future on the lake. But they almost lost it all, because they did not know that a paddleboard flips over really easy. They didn't know the dangers of cold water or how crucial a life jacket is in temperatures like that. They had the drive to create the future they wanted, but they didn't have the knowledge to get there successfully. Entrepreneurs, when you are just starting out, don't make their mistake. Remember, you don't know what you don't know. Stay humble. Do your homework. Ask yourself the question today, What don't I know? And then get to work to find out. Surround yourself with mentors and experts who can steer you away from devastating mistakes. Don't let a lack of knowledge sink your dreams. Success is not just about paddling hard. It's also about learning how to navigate. Thank you.